Peace, 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 peace. I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I think that's the show where people scream, "Winter is coming." Whatever happens in that show, summer is coming. Summer is coming. It's getting warmer. The trees are starting to unfurl. They all had little buds. Now they're starting to blossom. There's this funny thing that happens in the backyard behind this house where it'll be like barren, barren, barren trees, and then poof, it looks like they all explode all at once. Spring is a great time. Spring is a great time to talk about embodiment because that's you blooming into yourself and filling yourself up, all of you unfurling into all parts of yourself. So, in looking at embodiment, I just want to share how the way that I've been taught to lift others up, to contribute to those around me, is often at my own peril. And I've shared that before. It is a very, I've heard people say other things like, you don't pour out of your cup, you pour out of your saucer. What has overflowed into your saucer is what you give. Oftentimes, many of us don't get the chance to even watch it overflow into the saucer. We get a little bit, and then we're like, oh, my cup's filling up. And then we initiate giving that all to somebody else. There's always people ready to drink out of the cup, but it's usually us that initiates that. So that has been the lesson, and there have been so many ways, uh, so many different teachings um, from Christianity, even in African traditional communities. I don't think that these things are the truths that can be found in different traditions. I think it's the way that we use them. So the encouragement is, sacrifice yourself. And I remember saying to an elder one time that I don't want to be a martyr. And this elder lifted up the merits of being a martyr. And I'm like, I'm immensely grateful for ancestors who have given their lives, both figuratively and literally, for my wholeness and my well-being, and who stand in eternity as ancestors determining, helping to guide our way. I also am grateful for elders who are still here, who are guiding with their examples, with their lives, who are showing their children how to be adult warrior scholars, who are here still shining their light. And I don't lift martyrdom to this very high place, which, if we're honestly looking at it, in our African centered communities where we say that we've eschewed the teachings and the mores and values of the church, to lift up martyrdom to that place is a very Christ-like ideal as well. So, in any case, what I wanted to share today was that, and I've shared this before, and I did a whole story and stretch about it with Hope for the Flowers. So if you look back at that, that one's about community. There's a whole playlist about what community is for and what community is not for. And in the story, Stripe and Yellow are two caterpillars. And as they move forward into becoming pupa and into their chrysalis, they're no longer caterpillars. And in order to become butterflies, they can't be caterpillars. And the way that the caterpillars were interacting in that book wasn't the best way for caterpillars to interact anyway, but the caterpillars that they were interacting with had lost their way. When Yellow primarily decided, this isn't the way I'm supposed to be living, she could not be with the caterpillars. She could not communicate with the caterpillars. The caterpillars didn't understand her as a butterfly. But becoming a butterfly, they can understand each other. So just that to say that In the movement from obedience to embodiment and the truth that there's community tension around growth, what are you doing? Why are you doing that differently? You are upsetting the apple cart of how we understand things to be, even if how we understand things to be is not healthy. Um, and growth disrupts agreements. If the agreement, and I use this story because it's such an easy story, and it doesn't. There's no value on who is right and wrong. In Hope for the Flowers, the uh, Yellow and Stripe have decided we don't want to climb the caterpillar pillar to ascend when what they have in them is wings and they could ascend that way. But that's not how the story starts because that's the point. We don't want to climb caterpillar pillars to ascend. So we're tired of that. Feels like it's pointless. So we'll just hug and love on each other in the grass and we will eat leaves and we will get fat and we will enjoy being with each other. Until they don't spell it out this way in the book, but until it becomes apparent that there's something more. They can hug and they can be with each other, but they can never recreate themselves. They cannot reproduce as caterpillars. They cannot ascend as caterpillars. They cannot complete the fulfillment of their lives, of what is called, what their biology is calling for, what their spirits are calling for. It's a metaphor for so many things, but they cannot complete what they are supposed to do. And they also, as caterpillars, cannot pollinate. They cannot help out with the life of the flowers. So when it gets to the point, Stripe and Yellow have made an agreement where they're like, this is what we're going to do. Until Yellow's like, this isn't all we're supposed to be doing. So her decision, actually, Yellow wasn't the one that made that choice. When Stripe decides, this isn't what we're supposed to be doing, and Stripe decides to go back to the caterpillar pillar, and Yellow decides, I can't go into the caterpillar pillar, but I think I can do something else. And she goes into a tree and spins her cocoon. Their agreement is broken because they both grow. Stripe's growth leaves it leaves to be seen later in the story, but they both grown into another space. And so the agreement that they had to just eat grass and leaves and to um, hug in the grass couldn't stand because they both grew and they grew eventually in the same direction, but their agreement had to change. They couldn't have the caterpillar agreement and soar in the sky as butterflies. So there's a there's a saying, the water rises all the boats, and I want to center around that. Um, is that the water rises all the boats, and the other saying is that the doctor can not take the medicine for the patient. So as I said before, I've been caught or taught that you give and you give and you give. I hear REM. You give yourself away, and that's how you bless others. That this martyrdom ideal is always behind everything else. So you give yourself away and you give yourself away. And if your life disappears in the process, then at least you will have been righteous and holy and set apart and have demonstrated your good character. And those who have received everything you've given, even though there's nothing left for you, will be immensely grateful and they will sing your praises. And that's the payoff. So but there's another way to give. So embodiment and being full of yourself, which is so funny that that's such a bad saying, but actually being full of you, and expanding fully out of yourself and giving out of that is a very different thing. So this has been. I love when one person's creativity sparks a lot of other people. And one of the best examples I've seen lately has been Sinners. So when you look at Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners, and I know it's not just his by himself, but the fact that he wrote that movie in tribute to his uncle and in tribute to men like his uncle, um, it caused a chain reaction of ancestral veneration and personal power. So if you've ever listened to any, I'm not going to recount them all, but if you've ever listened to any of the interviews, there is not one actor or person behind the scenes connected to that film who did not speak of connecting to their ancestors, um, finding more power within themselves, finding more strength, courage, understanding of the necessity of telling their own stories, of expanding more fully into themselves. And that is because one person decided to be full of himself and his full his fullness overlap that's not what I want. It spilled over onto other people. It ignited where other people were ready to be full of themselves as well. And so when we are truly embodied, when we are standing fully in our power, the people around us have the choice to go, wow, that light is pretty bright. I know I have that too. And I've said this before, I like mine too. The unfortunate thing is, for many of us who are broken and hurt and harmed, a bright light in someone else looks like a threat. A bright light in someone else looks like something that should be extinguished. And oftentimes, a bright light in someone else, for some people, it doesn't cause aspirations to light their own light. It causes shame at what is not lit in themselves. And then either they have to talk bad about that light because they feel shameful, or they have to try and extinguish it so they can feel at peace. And peace isn't the word, but so that they can at least not feel like they are being called to be full of them. And so I say that to say, yes, the water rises all the boats. If the boats are in the water, if you have moved out into the stream where you have trusted your talent, your ancestors, your elders, your friends, your guides, the Orisha, the Bosom, the angels, all the names, the universe, the great mystery, you have stepped out into the water where you are floating. The water is rising, the current is moving you. But you can't move the boat that is mired on the shore. You cannot move the boat that was too scared to come out into the water. You cannot force the boat to come with you. If the water rises and there's a boat that is stuck in the soil or on the beach, the water just knocks the boat around. It doesn't drag the boat out of where it is. So that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to move out into the water. It is to trust the current. It is to fully embody what you have been called to do. And if you have taken your medicine, it's not your job, and it's not it's not even your responsibility. There is no possible way for you to take the medicine for somebody else. And even though it is given to us as selflessness and martyrdom, there's a certain amount of arrogance that happens in I can do it for everybody else. I will do it for everybody else. It is a misplaced. Its intentions are very good. Oftentimes, the intentions are very benevolent, but it's misplaced and it harms the giver and it harms the person who's supposed to be receiving. Because if I could take the medicine, there are many places in my life where if I could take the medicine for other people, I would take it. But then how would they know what their medicine is? How would they know what brings them to healing? How would they know what brings them to balance? And if I was able to take the medicine for someone else and bring them to balance, they're consistently dependent on me, which strokes my ego in a very unhealthy way. And they'll never really know the personal work of this is what it takes to make me whole. And everybody needs that chance. Everybody needs the opportunity to stand flat footed in gratitude and say, this is what it takes for me, not for anyone else, not to perform for anybody else, not to do it for anyone else. To do in the ways that I have been taught and that I have caught is to perpetually leave some people in an underdeveloped state of healing and emotional maturity because I'll do it all. I can do it all. I can do it all for you. But that's not love. And it truly isn't kindness for either person, for the giver or the receiver. There was a definition of bell hooks, the bell hooks used of love that I shared earlier that said that love is being desirous of the spiritual growth of another. So no one else can spiritually grow if I'm under the false belief that I can do it for them. So as you are embodying and being full of you, just know that your light is enough to invite someone else to ask you about it, to be inspired. It's not to say that you close off and you don't do anything, but you can't make, what is it? You can't lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Um, you can't make anyone else seek their wellness, but you can be an example of what wellness looks like for you. So that's it. Be full of yourself. This is Reverend Okonkwo Walimu Yogi Sister Mama Adi again saying, fill yourself up and allow that to overflow. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.